Chapter 131 to 133. Even in winter, the land of rain doesn't snow. At the start of winter, freezing cold rain falls, forming a thin, transparent layer of frozen ice on the ground and trees. Everywhere, the ice is light red, frozen with the blood of shinobi. In life, they fought each other. In death, their blood mixed together. Perhaps the peace among shinobi can only be realized in the afterlife. Late at night, in the Konoha camp in the land of rain. Yuto sat by the stove, warming himself. Shinobi need to eat and dress, and in cold weather, they often use chakra to generate heat by stimulating their cells. Of course, as the deputy commander, Yuto lived comfortably even on the front lines. Konoha provided him with good living supplies. He tossed a potato into the stove, sending sparks flying. He then added many meat and spice balls. These were similar to MRE from his past life. They needed only heating. The logistics team knew Yuto's cooking was as bad as being sealed by the four symbols seal, so they specially prepared some semi-finished meat and vegetable balls for him. When working late, he could just put them in the stove. The taste was decent, at least better than his own cooking. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the door. "Come in," Yuto said without lifting his eyelids. "Yuto-kun, having a meal?" Minato appeared, sitting by the stove. "Minato-senpai, want some?" Yuto offered. "Sure." Minato smiled warmly. "Let's eat and talk." After a while, when the MRE became ready, they ate directly around the stove. "So convenient," Minato said, biting into a rice ball. "I should ask the logistics team to prepare some for me, too." "I remember you cook well. And isn't Kushina-senpai there with you?" "We don't have much time." Minato shook his head. "Speaking of serious matters, Yuto-kun, the village wants you to return." "Me? Is there a mission?" "The Anbu who delivered the Hokage's order didn't say anything about missions, so it should be a normal rotation." Yuto calculated the time and sighed. "Indeed, it's time to return." The Moon God Encirclement battle had ended almost half a year ago. The Shinobi world entered winter again, and year 57 of Konoha was coming to an end. In less than a month, it would be New Year. Yuto had been in the land of rain for nearly 9 months. Even as a vice commander, it was time to return to the village for rest. "Yuto-kun, don't worry about the Western Front. After you return, Jiraiya-sensei will take over." "Is Jiraiya-sama's injury healed?" "Almost. Sensei can't stay idle. He has been soaking in hot springs in the land of hot water, saying it helps his mood and speeds up recovery. Ha ha ha." "That sounds like Jiraiya-sama." Yuto paused and then said, "Minato-senpai, I remember just now you seem to have some special promotion slots." "Those slots have been allocated to your 3 students. I reported them last week," Minato said sincerely. "Ruri, Shisui, and Muta are all excellent kids." "Thank you." Yuto sighed inwardly and handed Minato a piece of roasted potato. No wonder Minato could become Hokage. He worked tirelessly since the war began. He even stepped up to command when Orochimaru was in trouble. He is brimming with talent, and even understood how to comfort people and exchange benefits. The calls for Minato to become Hokage were growing louder. Both the higher-ups and Konoha villagers, as well as the frontline warriors, all supported Minato unanimously. "But speaking of which, Yuto-kun," Minato said, blowing on the potato before eating it, "what do you think of the Akatsuki organization?" "They're a major threat. With the Rinnegan and Wood release, they harbor extreme hostility towards the village." "Yes, the Rinnegan is already frightening, and now there's also Wood release. Kitsu Yoshihiro. His fame is growing." "Minato-senpai, Amegakure, and Akatsuki are significant threats," Yuto said, like a young, concerned protector of the village. "Maybe we should launch a war against them." "It's difficult. I've thought about using Flying Thunder God to infiltrate, but Amegakure is too closed off and mysterious." Minato suddenly smiled. Recently, some high-ups suggested using Jinchuriki to destroy a Megakure. He was still smiling, handsome and gentle, but the smile was cold, suppressed with anger. Yuto raised an eyebrow, knowing that mentioning Kushina would anger Minato. "Shall I look into who suggested that when I return to the village?" "Thank you, Yuto-kun." The fire in the stove seemed even warmer. Exchanging benefits doesn't distance people but brings them closer. The two talked for a long time until the firewood burned out, and Minato finally left. Yuto leaned against the door, watching him leave. The Konoha camp was busy as always. The boy watched the patrolling shinobi squad, the light in his eyes flickering. After the moon god encirclement battle, the land of rain entered a prolonged stalemate. The fire, earth, and wind countries fought each other. Although Amigakure occasionally interfered, the overall situation was relatively stable, with major shinobi villages exchanging lives in a programmed way. Tsunade returned to Konoha 4 months ago, ending their secret game. Yuto felt a bit regretful but quickly adjusted, planning to continue accumulating Hyuga corpses and making more gods' masks for emergencies. Unexpectedly, this plan hit a snag. The cause was still the moon god encirclement battle. The Hyuga clan contributed significantly to Hiruzen's plan, but received no benefits. A main family clan girl even went missing. To appease the Hyuga, the Hokage provided many resources and made certain policy concessions. One policy was to protect the Byakugan as much as possible on the battlefield, and any Hyuga member's disappearance must be formally reported by the battle's commander. The intent was to account for the Hyuga shinobis, to protect the village's Kekkei Genkai, but this policy troubled Yuto. If too many Hyuga went missing on the front lines, he and Minato would be questioned by the Hokage. A thorough investigation might reveal Yuto's betrayal. There's no wall without a crack. With enough effort and consequences, using impure world reincarnation to investigate could uncover most secrets in the shinobi world. So Yuto had to be extra careful, slowing down the collection of bodies. But even slowly, he could still collect some. Yuto had patience. Returning to the village, however, might yield nothing. He still needed 2 clones. The Uzumaki clone might be created using Nagato's cells, but the single Sharingan's tissue wasn't enough to make an Uchiha clone. To achieve his goal, he had to use God's mask and his identity as the moon god. After thinking for a while, Yuto couldn't find a solution. Being stuck halfway was frustrating, but with the tightened Byakugan protection policy, he had to proceed cautiously. Since the outbreak of the Third Shinobi World War, Yuto, as a warrior on the front lines, had gained extensive experience. By the average survival time on the battlefield, he was undoubtedly a veteran. However, it was his first time leaving the battlefield as a vice commander. The next day, Minato called a small meeting with 3 vice commanders, including Yuto. Yuto will return to the village, and Jiraiya-sensei will replace him. Minato went straight to the point. This will be our last conversation as commanders of the Western Front. Yuto is going back to the village to report to the Hokage. If you have anything to say, let him convey it. Yuto, began the middle-aged Jonin from the Uchiha clan. Please tell the village to be extremely cautious of the Akatsuki. The wood release belongs to Konoha, but the Akatsuki has obtained it, which is a very alarming signal. Yuto nodded. I will request the Hokage to send more reinforcements. Before he could finish, another vice commander interrupted calmly. Vice Commander Yuto, perhaps you haven't understood Shin's point. So, Tsunagakure and Iwagakure are strong, but unknown enemies are even more terrifying. With Shinosuke and Meiko Hyuga missing, the incident regarding the Byakugan has been confirmed. Now the Akatsuki has obtained wood release. If one day the Sharingan stands against the village, I wouldn't be surprised. The young man was taken aback and glanced thoughtfully at Fujio Uchiha. The moon god had once raided Orochimaru's laboratory. In the ambush, Nagato appeared and destroyed the 4 red yang formation. The two must know each other. The appearance of wood release in the Akatsuki is related to the moon god. This inference was logical. The moon god killed many Hyuga clansmen and abducted Mako Hyuga. This was an undeniable fact. Wood release, Byakugan, 2 top-tier Kekkei Genkai of Konoha had been acquired by the moon god. Next, could it be the Uchiha's turn? Even the most optimistic people couldn't deny this possibility. I understand, Yuto said solemnly. Vice Commander Shin, I will truthfully convey this to the Hokage. The Uchiha on the Rain Country front need the village's support. This was Shin's true intention. The issues regarding Akatsuki is indeed difficult to resolve, Minato suddenly spoke. About that Kitsu Yoshihiro, everything is an unknown mystery. None of the ANBU sent to Omegakure returned with information. They all likely perished. There seems to be a powerful perception barrier or ninjutsu around Omegakure. It seems we are powerless against Omegakure unless we launch a full-scale war. Yuto, convey my judgment to the Hokage as well. The only way to deal with the Akatsuki is to capture Omegakure. Do not send Anbu on infiltration missions anymore. There's no need to waste the village's carefully nurtured forces. The 4 commanders discussed a few more things before parting ways. Yuto returned to his room, organized the intelligence and documents, and wrote notes for a smooth handover when Jiraiya arrived. He worked until dark, completing half the task. Just as he thought of taking a break, a knock sounded at the door. He opened it to find his 3 students standing outside. Come in, Yuto said, placing some snacks on the table. Sensei, Shisui bit into a sweet pastry. We heard you're returning to the village. You all seem well informed. Yuto ruffled his hair. When Jiraiya-sama arrives for the handover, I'll leave. Shisui looked a bit shy. Sensei, can we go back to the village with you? Do you miss someone in the village? A girl, maybe? Yuto teased. No, not really. Shisui, quick-witted, pulled the white-haired girl beside him in front of him. It's Ruri. She wants to see her home again. Ruri gave Shisui a sideways glance and stomped on his foot. Hearing his low cry of pain, she was satisfied and spoke up. Yuto-sensei, please take us with you. Her clear voice and lazy tone were typical of a girl acting spoiled. You're really committed to the act, Yuto thought to himself. Ahem. As Konoha shinobi, fighting for the village's interests is our duty. Since the Hokage has given orders, we must obey. He paused, smiling at the handsome boy. Sorry, Shisui. Maybe next time. Shisui was a child with a broad view. Though he wanted to return to the village, he obediently refrained from further entanglement. The 3 students asked for guidance on their training, and Yuto answered each question, assigning homework to test them the next time they met. By the way, Ruri, while explaining a certain jutsu principle, Yuto casually said, Though Shisui is strong, you're older than the 2 of them by a few months. As their older sister, take care of Shisui and Muta, especially Shisui, as the Uchiha are anxious due to the moon god's incident. Yes, sensei, Ruri responded softly. She understood his true meaning. Take care of Shisui, for those Kotoa Matsukami eyes. The false emotions and the supposedly harmonious Team 9 were actually just a training ground for the Shikotsumyaku and an eye cultivation chamber. Team 9's 3 kids left late at night, and Yuto leaned against the doorframe watching them depart. The boy and girl's movements and voices were faintly audible in the night wind. Ruri, why did you step on me just now? I didn't step on you. I stepped on a pig. Huh? Idiot. Who told you to use me as a shield? If you miss someone in the village, just say it. I don't. You don't? Ruri suddenly leaned in close. Her long eyelashes fluttered as she spoke. You don't? Then why is your face red? Why are you sweating? The girl was so close, without any awareness of gender boundaries. Shisui's nose almost touched her fair face. His face turned bright red, and he instinctively stepped back. It's not red, and I'm not sweating. It's just left over from the water release. The girl laughed. Water release? Can you do a waterfall jutsu? Show me? She leaned in even closer, finally giving up on logic. The girl merrily stepped on his foot, and he just helplessly watched. The Uchiha boy, whose body flicker technique far exceeded genin level, didn't dodge. In the distance, Yuto sighed, holding his forehead. If he couldn't see through Shisui's little thoughts, he wasn't fit to be a spy. Shisui, you're really something. Messing around in front of your teacher, who taught you that? Jiraiya and Yuto were not very familiar with each other. Throughout the war, they often fought on different fronts, rarely meeting. Their interaction was quite formal and businesslike. Yuto organized the collected data methodically, and Jiraiya, without any airs, accepted it harmoniously. As their meeting concluded, Jiraiya felt a bit weary. He stretched, walked outside, and leaned on the railing, gazing into the distance. His broad back and wet white hair clung to his clothes, making him look like a solemn statue. Yuto-kun, Jiraiya suddenly spoke. How's your sensei doing lately? She's in quite a good mood. Yuto thought about the secret games with the blonde woman. Even the briefest touch between them, as fleeting as it was, Yuto's Byakugan could capture the faint blush that spread across Tsunade's delicate skin. Actually, she's in a very good mood, Yuto added. Jiraiya sighed. You've had a tough time, Yuto-kun. Your sensei is strong, but she also needs care. When you return to the village, please convey... Oh, never mind. Don't pass on any message. Happiness is not something a woman should seek. Jiraiya shrugged and continued staring into the distance. In that direction lies Amegakure. Perhaps Nagato is watching us too. Yuto-kun, you have met Nagato and even delivered messages for them. Do you think we ever had a chance to avoid this conflict? Yuto stepped forward, also letting himself get drenched by the rain, but said nothing. Jiraiya fell silent again. He didn't expect Yuto to console him. As one of the legendary Sannin, Jiraiya knew that the chances of reconciling Konoha and Akatsuki were slim. Nagato, are you the child of prophecy as the Toad Sage foretold? Perhaps the current you will drag the shinobi world into the abyss. Jiraiya kept staring in the direction of Amegakure, his gaze unwavering. Yuto donned a raincoat and left the Konoha camp. In 6 hours, dawn would break. By then, he would lead the wounded and a group of battle-worn shinobi back to the village. After the moon god encirclement battle, the shinobi secretly spying on him gradually withdrew. Today, Jiraiya officially took over as deputy commander, allowing Yuto to relax and handle his personal affairs before leaving. He wore his raincoat, walked through the frost-covered forest for a long time, taking a detour to the agreed location. Kitsu Yoshihiro was already waiting there. You are too flamboyant, Yuto said, rubbing his forehead with a wry smile. Yesterday, I received a battle report saying you used your jutsu to skewer Konoha and Suna shinobi like candied fruits, turning the place into a bloodbath. Konoha is planning an attack on you. Be careful. I know what I'm doing, Kitsu replied nonchalantly. He looked like a 13 or 14-year-old boy with a gentle appearance but aggressive actions. Such provocations won't be tolerated by the major shinobi villages. They will come to kill me. When that happens, I'll just slaughter them all. With Nagato covering me, I can quickly grow in battle, reaching the level where you can devour me. You really want me to devour you? Every moment, every second. Why? Yuto was curious. Why? Kitsu Yukihiro was stunned for a moment, frowning. If you ask me why, I don't know. Think about it. Even if someone doesn't know the meaning of life, they wouldn't commit suicide for no reason. Living is the meaning. The meaning is living. Do you understand? I am incomplete. To me, nothing is more meaningful than growing quickly and being devoured by you. Yuto was suddenly flattered. I didn't expect my status to be so great in your eyes. Kitsu rolled his eyes. Thanking me is as pointless as bowing to your own pinky finger. Ha ha. Yuto laughed and advised, I just wanted to tell you to be cautious, but since you have a plan, I won't interfere. Don't be too optimistic, main body, Kitsu said softly. My ultimate goal is to be successfully devoured by you. I don't care about anything else. No matter how big the trouble, I don't mind. At least, that's what I think. Yuto waved his hand and turned to leave. As long as you know what you're doing. Who knows when we'll meet again? Take care of yourself. I hope next time we meet, you'll devour me. After parting with the Senju clone, Yuto went to the underground base alone, organized the experimental potions and materials, cleaned the floor and walls, and sprinkled desiccants and insect repellents. Finally, he moved the medical tanks containing Meiko and Shinosuke to the Shikotsu forest for easy access. Due to the creation of the Senju clone and Konoha's enhanced protection of the Byakugan policy, he had only obtained 3 corpses of his clan's genin during this period. He couldn't make the god's mask and had to put it aside for now. After finishing everything, Yuto returned to the Konoha camp as dawn approached. He lay down for a short while before Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki arrived. Yuto-kun, Kushina handed him a package. These are sweets and trinkets I collected in the Land of Rain. Please give them to Tsunade-sama. Sure. Minato Namikaze put his arm around Yuto's shoulder, smiling as he turned back. I need to have a word with Yuto-kun. Then he pulled the white-eyed boy into the room, whispering mysteriously, Yuto-kun, I have a favor to ask. Minato-senpai, just say it. I plan to marry Kushina. Huh? Oh, that's great news. A battlefield wedding. Yes. Kushina often comes to my command office. As a man, letting this ambiguous situation continue would be irresponsible. Minato's blue eyes flashed with anticipation and happiness. According to the traditions of the Land of Fire, we will invite a female companion and a male companion. Kushina will write to Tsunade-sama about this, and for the male companion, I want you. Suddenly, Yuto felt a bit complicated. In Minato's eyes, am I already someone he can discuss such matters with? Thinking it over, although Minato was popular in the village, he had no true life-and-death friends. No one had ever put the user of the Flying Thunder God in mortal danger. Yuto was Minato's direct subordinate, having followed him from the eastern to the western front. Moreover, he would be 15 in a few months, barely suitable in age. There really wasn't a more fitting person in Konoha. All right, Minato-senpai. Yuto nodded, hesitated for a moment, and softly said, May you always be together.